Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has linked the firebombing to what he calls the Labor government's extreme anti-Israeli position, citing its recent decision to support yet another anti-Israel UN resolution. Amanda, such scathing public criticism from Israel's leader surely shows that Australia's relationship with our ally in the Middle East is now firmly in the toilet.
We don't actually know. Maybe behind the scenes they have a pretty good relationship.
No, I can tell you they don't.
but what concerns me is I don't want Albanese to be held personally responsible for the behaviours of society, which we know can be absolutely vile, right? We've got youth crime, people bombing things, people murdering people, domestic violence. Yes, his decisions need to be very decisive, and yes, you were right, he needed to come out straight away and say, this is abhorrent, shouldn't be done, it's an act of terror, we'll work on it. And then people know that he's compassionate about the cause. But I don't like it's Albanese's fault that this is happening. It should be more, let's have a discussion. I'm not happy with this. I'm concerned for my people. Let's sit down and talk about it. Because I think that's too combative. And I think all that's going to do is create more divisiveness. And that's not what we need right now.
Look, I disagree with that respectfully, Amanda. I think, Sam, that the Prime Minister has a lot to answer for in how he has dealt with incidents of anti-Semitism over the past more than 12 months. It's not just the resolutions at the United Nations, of which there have been a few, where Australia has departed from its standard position, but in constantly calling out Islamophobia when he mentions anti-Semitism, in sort of not speaking out strongly enough about certain incidents and protests that we've seen.
I see what you're saying, and rational, educated, smart, normal people can have a rational debate about these things. Where exactly he sits on the spectrum? Did he take too long to say this is a terrorist attack? We can have that debate. But to Amanda's point, the people that are prosecuting these acts of terror are crazy. They are not rational. Well, you don't know
that. I hear that all the time with terrorist incidents. They're being written off as people who have mental health issues. But look at the millions of terrorists that exist in the Middle East. I don't think it would be fair to just write them all off. Like they're being motivated in those instances by an ideology.
The idea that you could go and blow up a building, go up and blow up a church or a synagogue or something like that, I think that act in and of itself puts you to the utmost extreme of what a normal distribution of behaviour would be, right? Like that's not a controversial view to say.
But I don't think that meets the definition of crazy or insanity.
No, the point is that it's so extreme, it lies completely outside anything resembling normal political or
these
ideological
people aren't sitting there looking at which way
so they're not watching,
voting on
that's right.
But isn't it exactly what we've heard called for on the streets of Sydney, of Melbourne and other cities? Globalise the Intifada. Isn't that what that means, Evelyn? Those calls we've heard.
Yeah, I think too often today we like to make excuses for evil, and we like to sort of plaster everything as mental illness, and it's sort of like an excuse. It sort of lightens the load of how evil human beings can actually be. And so I'm all in favour of calling a spade a spade. You know, obviously I agree. You have to be a little bit missing a few brain cells to be able to do certain things, but at the end of the day, it's evil, it's sin, it is what it is, and I'm sick of making excuses for it. But I will just say, with this whole thing with Albanese coming out and making a statement, I actually think that it's our whole political system over here in Australia. We have a government that is very pluralistic, that's very relativist and very subjective. It's, we've basically told the people that live here and the politicians that every religion, every ideology, every morality is equal, and I'm sorry to say it, but, burst the bubble, not all cultures are equal, not all ideologies are equal, but we've allowed that. And so the government is now in a spot between a rock and a hard place, because if they, they basically have to go against their foundations and their fundamental belief system, which is that everything's equal. So they can't draw a position and a line, and I actually think it's a weakness. We need a government who, not wearing a jersey for one team or the other, but just morally and objectively say this is right, this is wrong, and just have the spine to call each situation as is.
Be able to